it just comes down to, I guess, a North Star. My North Star was purpose through my work. And I knew I wasn't going to accomplish that. I knew there was an upper bound for me personally in any career. And I truly admire friends and family and people who have found their calling and have a set career. And I say, you are the smart one. Like, I would never advise if you have that calling, like, keep learning, stay on that path to 9 to 5. But in your bones if you want to work for yourself.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset.
If you get one shot at this, what kind of shot are you going to take?
If we forget who we are, they're going to forget who you are.
And you've got an adversity story that's out of this world.
Everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
How you doing today, Brad?
Hey, Ken. How's it going? Pretty good.
It's fantastic here. Brad, can you tell us where you're from?
Yeah, from Chicago. Moved out to San Diego 2014 or so, and I'm living up in Lake Tahoe now.
Fantastic. And you're the founder of Good Wave, right?
I am. Yeah, that's right.
Are you the sole founder, or did you have some assistance in getting that company started?
Yeah, I'm the sole founder. I've got a lot to say there.
Okay.
We could make the whole episode about solo founders.
Being a solo founder, yep.
And let me just tell you, if you're listening, I don't recommend it. You need somebody in the trenches with you, to fight the lows and strategize, and you need someone to celebrate those wins with. They're much sweeter when you do.
Yes.
So I would not start this again as a solo founder.
Okay, that's I'm sure that if we asked 100 entrepreneurs about should you start, maybe that's a survey we should do. When you start another company, would you start with a co-founder or a solo founder? And I have mixed emotions on it. I only start businesses with my wife now. I don't do any more. She's my co-founder in anything that I'm doing, because I've always had these weird relationships with other founders, and sometimes it's working, but most of the time it's a challenge. If you do have a partner, you got to make sure you're really, really in line with them, right? And that you have the same vision. So can you tell us a little bit about Good Wave and what is Good Wave and what makes Good Wave a special company?
Yeah. So I was working in tech in San Diego at the time. This was probably in 2018. And I was actually walking down the boardwalk in Pacific Beach, which is where I lived. And I started noticing some billboard ads that sort of rubbed me wrong, and I couldn't get it out of my head for a few weeks. I noticed probably a 16-year-old girl as a bikini model for a major surf brand. I won't mention who it is, but it bugged me, right? And so I started picking my friends' brains with kids. And the more I chatted with my friends there with kids, I realized that there was a lot of surf brands and water sports brands out there that weren't really servicing families. They were overly sexualized. They were intimidating. They were kind of targeting youth against establishment culture with skulls and blood and things like that. And I'm like, why isn't there a family-friendly surf brand? And I took a step back and I said, and as I started talking to more parents who weren't surfers, I discovered that this is more of a water sports problem. And now in the more recent year, I started asking some climbing friends, some outdoor adventure friends, and I'm noticing that this is an entire outdoor industry problem. It's quite intimidating to get kids into these sports that we love. And, there's a big priority on parenting in the wild right now, which is something that we like to say, parenting in the wild, which is what we're celebrating. So started in San Diego as a family first surf and water sports company.
Wonderful. So I find it, I definitely, not growing up near the ocean, but spending some time there, I find it shocking that there's no family-friendly surf brand, right? Obviously, if you're going to make a surf brand, you market to surfers, which I've got an idea of a surfer in my head, which is, a ripped blonde with, it says gnarly and stuff like that. Yeah. But, I have a youth sports team, and I do a lot of youth sports, and you have to have those youths in the sport to keep that sport going. So is there an average for surfers? Like when you become a surfer, when you start surfing, do they start young, or is it kind of just, do you start in your 20s when you can afford it and risk it?
Yeah. That's that's the difference, right? I'm a Midwesterner coming in as a transplant to San Diego to that culture. And I grew up snowboarding, skateboarding. Like I was very involved with extreme sports, if you want to call them that. But I found surf to be a bit intimidating. And imagine me, but like with long hair. I mean, I looked like a surfer and I still felt like I was a totally out of place and uncomfortable. And it was an intimidating process. And I was like in my young 20s. So
Right.
yeah, the surf companies, they're targeting kids, but it's a different niche, and they're servicing that through their products differently. If you look at any surfboard, there's like skulls and blood, as I mentioned. It's just an intimidating like skate culture. There's a lot of 80s branding in there with like neon bright letters and sharp, drastic graphics and things like that. So we do have a product launch coming up this summer. It's a really fun one. I will say it's a fruit and veggie themed foam surfboard line.
Okay.
So yeah, right. And this came through literally hundreds of our customers just talking to their kids, being like, "What do you want to see in a surfboard?" And overwhelmingly, I won't give it away, but overwhelmingly they landed on one particular fruit. So that's our board. Yeah. So we just essentially shop this around with like hundreds of our customers.
Okay. And so this is you said a foam-based board?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's a foam-based board specifically for the kids that had asked for it. Now, is this like what kind of different kind of surfing is there, right? There's paddle boarding. Is that surfing? Windsurfing?
Yeah.
Is that surfing?
Yeah. I mean, I think we could talk about the theory of surf and the origin of it. But the point is, these companies are servicing kids in a very different niche through their graphics and through their products. So we're not necessarily recreating the wheel in terms of the actual construction, although that is a goal. That is something we'd like to graduate to in order to improve, some of the virgin plastics in the products. But yeah, essentially, think about it as an outsider. If you grow up and you're immersed in this, Southern California surf culture, it's pretty natural to get your kid on a board when you're growing up and you kind of know your way around. That's not who our customers are. Although we do have those, quote unquote, really cool lifestyle oriented Southern California customer families. Those are definitely some of our customers. That's not who we're ultimately looking to service as our target customer because they're already getting serviced by all these companies.
Correct.
So there's paddle boarding, there's windsurfing, there's foil boarding, which we could get into. There's tons of new technology coming out. I could go into the business model a little bit too. I've bootstrapped this whole business, so I have a really specific strategy on how we launch new products. That's probably very different than folks coming in with a big lump sum of cash. Right. But the point is, we're testing each one of these niches, and it has to answer the questions of like, are these not being serviced currently for families? So yeah, there's brand, community, product itself, price point. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into why families aren't being serviced by this industry.
Right. So if I'm a business owner today and I've got some kind of water sport idea in my head, and I've it's big in size, but it doesn't always think deeply. If I think I'm going to build a water sports company, am I narrowing myself down to the two coasts of customers, like East Coast, West Coast, that people can surf? Or is there a whole lot of other kinds of water sports and the lakes throughout the Midwest? Or are you kind of just your marketing plan on those two coasts?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, you got to start small. So I started small in one specific product through product research, through personal experience, through my tech background. Just like I started where I knew I could add value and actually test a minimal viable product. So I tested that with a really limited budget. I saw a little bit of success. So I graduated from a surfboard to a larger product category. I love the water sports industry more than just focusing on surf. Because frankly, it's not quite as exclusive. The whole surf industry is essentially, run by ex-professionals who are running surf companies. And the great part is sometimes I jump on these calls and I don't know who these folks are because I didn't grow up with this culture. So I'm not a fan by nature. And I'm just there forming the relationship with them, whether we do business or not. But yeah, if you're just looking to get into it, I would think bigger picture. I have a personal passion for surf. I have found a ton of mental health benefits from it, as well as the obvious physical benefits from it. I'm a big believer of that. You can do your research on the impact of it on brain elasticity or meditation and mindfulness. But that's another discussion. So if you're looking to get into starting an e-commerce business, say, that was just my personal preference for water sports, but you'd be surprised at like what's possible out there. I started it really, really specific, and now we're zooming out to an entire outdoor industry company. We're getting into a little bit of climbing, researching snow sports.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really Good Wave long term might be a family friendly outdoor brand, not just surf, not just water sports, but outdoor. And would that be, I think of you said extreme sports, if you want to call them that, kind of the X Games kind of sports is what I grew up knowing, those like surfing, skateboarding, those kinds of things were the X Games kind of realm, right? So
and think about it, right? Like, oh, go ahead.
And you're right. It is, every one of those sports is somewhat pretty intimidating, right? Like, they're badass stuff. They're jumping high, they're going fast, they're, it's dangerous. Moms don't want their kids doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're drinking I'll sub the energy drinks name. They're drinking one of those, their shirts off, they're getting all bloody and stuff like that. That's cool. Trust me, I idolized that when I was a kid. When I was 10 years old, I was watching the X Games. And
well, yeah, but mom's footing the bill and she's not buying that.
Yeah. And the question is, who is celebrating the working mother, father, or single parent combo where they're bringing their kids out into nature? Like, who's putting a microphone under that mentor, that parent, and saying that person is doing phenomenally as a parent, and introducing nature to their kid, grounding them. Like, no one is there with a camera in that person's face as a parent. The camera goes to the athlete in the X Games. So through our couple short years of business, I mean, I'm thrilled to see parents just excited. They reach out and they'll send us a message. Our support team will forward it over to me and say, like, thanks for making this approachable. We didn't know how to get into it. Like, this is our first time. That is what makes it all worth it. So that camera is always going to be on that professional athlete. We're not trying to change that. That's just not our business model. We're not sponsoring any athletes. I don't intend to. If it comes down to it, I talk about this a lot. If we have an opportunity to hire a model, or my friend with a dad bod who's got a rad 6-year-old, we're gonna shoot some content with that dad every single time. Right.
That is awesome. I like that you're making that approachable, right? And to just everybody. I do the same thing with my boxing school. It lets everybody in the door, right? So and make it approachable to the people that may not have liked that sport otherwise, right? Because not everybody likes the skull and crossbones stuff, right? There's the fruit and vegetable kids out there that want to get out there, and I don't know. I've never been surfing. I go paddleboarding with my daughter. I wish I did it more. I wish I could say I did it more. I don't. A couple times a year. And it is relaxing out there, right? It's almost meditative when you're out in the middle of a lake or out in the middle of the ocean. It's got to have a lot of therapeutic value to it. So, and I think as we get more digital, these kids need more and more of that kind of thing in their life, right? Whatever it is, if it's surf, boxing, karate, something that gets them. And if they can be outdoors, then that's even better. Living in Missouri, we only get about 3 weeks a year that we can be outdoors and be comfortable. But so you left Chicago, go to San Diego, working in tech, decide you're going to start the company, and you start in 2019. That's when you start taking orders?
Yeah, exactly.
Was this early 19 or late 19?
This is about mid-19, pre-pandemic. Yeah. So I was working in tech in Chicago. I was working at Groupon Getaways in Chicago. My territory was the West Coast. I was visiting my hotel partners, working in sales, I should say. And then I moved out west. I was on a market visit down in San Diego, and I came back. I think I booked a meeting with my boss like that Monday morning, and I said, "Hey, I'm moving to San Diego."
Right.
She just kind of shrugs and looks down and says, I knew you were going to.
Yeah.
I knew that was a 50% chance. But anyways, I moved out to San Diego, connected with this incredible startup out there, Classy, and it's a social enterprise. So nonprofit fundraising and technology, and worked there for 4 years. Phenomenal time. But yeah, I was always teaching myself to code, like at nights and weekends, and starting little projects and stuff at night.
Right.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, I was surfing every day and playing a lot of volleyball, but I was really interested, and I just thought it was so cool that you could have an idea, and then you could learn to code or learn to design and find a developer and build the product that you're thinking of. And I've always had way too many ideas like that. So it was just exciting for me that I could just learn to code and do it. So this is a long-winded answer, but yeah, I was working in tech in San Diego, in sales. And then I finally got enough confidence to leave my job and go back to school full time for coding. And then when I came out of that program, my company, the startup, reached out, and they just had like a perfect position blending the two skill sets. So kind of had this hybrid tech and sales customer support hybrid job.
Makes a great sales engineer.
But yeah. I mean, at a startup, you're wearing all the different hats for sure.
Yep.
Jumped on a lot of sales calls, but I was always like building these projects at night. So I started, with the idea of GoodWave. I built that for like a year without transacting a single dollar on the platform. I mean, it's so easy to spin up a Shopify site now.
Right.
And there's so much good content out there. I just got started. I mean, I connected with one podcast, just learning about e-commerce. I was like, hey, I can do this. I'm bringing, marketing, customer experience, tech. Like, I think I can do this. And I had all the skills poised for success, and I still failed miserably for a good year. Right. So that's just, I think that's
you didn't quit. You kept going, right? That's the only real failure is quitting. So
don't quit your day job.
Right.
That allows you to fail, and then allows you to invest into your business. Finally, saw some success with it, finally decided, hey, it's now or never. Kind of jumped off into the deep end and built wings on the way down, so to say. And the rest is history from there. That was back in 2019 when I finally left.
Okay. So you had the site up for a year, no sales, right? How much do you accredit the no sales part to you just not making the direct intent, hey, I'm going to try to go sell this, like you getting off the fence, or, finally you got some component right of the website?
Yeah, it's probably the opposite answer of what you're expecting.
Okay.
But I started this business really offline, and I was walking around to different surf shops saying, hey, I'm starting some online retailing with these brands. Doesn't look like you carry them. Would you be interested in going through me? And here's our mission. Here's who we're servicing, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't see a lot of success there. I found some shops who were willing to try it, but I didn't get any sales. It just wasn't the right business model.
Right.
And I failed fast, and I found that out pretty quickly that it wasn't the right strategy. It wasn't until I focused on online in the digital marketing aspect and realized, hey, this is really a digital marketing game, at least in the beginning.
Right.
Now it's a totally different strategy. Still is, but there's a lot more at play.
Right.
But honestly, where I wised up was I love learning, and the idea of starting a business and learning a new skill through that business was exciting, because I said, worst case scenario, I leave this business and I have these skills and I can go do some contract freelance work, or I can take these into my career. So it was a win-win to me. Why not spend the time?
Right.
But I'll say the transition point was when I hired for a couple roles that I was doing myself, that I was learning. I swallowed my ego. I had to. And I say, I'm not a professional at Facebook ads, Google ads, I'm not a professional at content marketing.
Right.
I can definitely learn how to get 60% of the way there, but it's going to be faster, more efficient if I hire someone. So that was the transition. So it wasn't necessarily like figuring out the website by any means. It was understanding what type of business it actually is, coming to grips with that, and then hiring the right talent to actually drive that forward, so I could focus on, the other tasks and business development and the overall business.
Right. I think that's really, really important to understand. I fall into this trap all the time. Oh, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. Because I know, I've been in IT for over 20 years, and I was in the music industry before that. So, I know how to do a whole lot of different things. So I fall in that trap a lot of, I can just get that done. I don't need to hire someone to do it. And then priorities take place and that job never gets done, or it doesn't get done the best way it could be. So recognizing those things and outsourcing them. And today, well, there's a whole new set of challenges for outsourcing today than there ever was before post-pandemic, but there's also more opportunity to outsource. So it's this double-edged sword of, in post-pandemic, it's weird. I don't want to get too much into human resource problems post-pandemic. I want to talk more about the business and how you grew it. So you're out 19, you're selling product now, and the pandemic hits in early 2020, right? So you've got less than a half a year up and running the way you want the model, and then bam, the whole world changes on you. How do you handle that? Was that a good experience? Oh, obviously it was a bad experience. COVID was bad for everybody, but some sporting good companies did really well, and some of them filed bankruptcy during the pandemic, right? And obviously you made it through the pandemic. So can you tell us a little bit about that? What was your experience going through labor shortages and pipeline shortages and material shortages and all of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind, first time founder, like I'd started projects before. I never actually started true businesses where we were transacting and paying bills and hiring teammates. So this was first time founder experience too during the pandemic. My good friend who I share updates with put it to me really bluntly the other day. Not the other day, this was probably 6 months ago. He said, it's gonna feel like you're lifting without the weights once all these restrictions come back down to normal. But the whole thing is there's a new normal, so we can get into that. But yeah, 2020 was nuts. I mean, I do yoga. I actually got a yoga certification to teach at the time. My community was really grounded. My community was really healthy. And meanwhile, I was running this business as a first-time founder during a global pandemic with supply chain shortages, saying, I can't believe, it caused more problems than added value for the extra demand. We saw unprecedented demand in the outdoor industry. The entire outdoor industry benefited from the pandemic, clearly. Companies like Peloton rose very quickly for at-home
But only
fitness.
if you had a warehouse full of stuff, right? If you didn't have the warehouse full of stuff, you're kind of stuck.
Yeah, yep. So that forced me to change. I saw a listing at one point. I thought about listing the business for parts, basically, and I didn't have my inventory. So I was here as a brand new retailer, and my suppliers, so I built personal relationships with, if they weren't really selling. Let me think, like if a Dick's Sporting Goods order came in, or like these big retail chains came in, there'd be no question. They'd have to fill 10 containers of product to that customer of theirs versus 10 products, not 10 containers, 10 products for me. So I was figuring out the digital marketing piece. I hired our marketer, everything was coming together, and then we'd send an order to our supplier and they'd say, sorry, we're out of product until 3 months from now, maybe. And it was a mess. It was really debilitating, honestly. And that forced me to change the strategy. So I pivoted from a dropship company, which is like really low barriers to entry. It's a really, really fun business model to get into. If you kind of stay away from the whole marketplace dropshipping platforms and try to work one-on-one with suppliers, I recommend that. Because that was my personal preference. But yeah, it forced me to graduate from the dropshipping model and pivot to a warehouse model where we store inventory.
Right.
So yeah, so then I took out warehouse space. I researched what a 3PL meant. First timer, right? Like never even heard that term before.
Right.
Found some folks in my network who had shadowed projects like that, not even run them. Found one guy who was tremendous resource, good buddy of mine, met at previous company. And yeah, just through the right people, figured out what a 3PL was, took out warehouse space, put in the first bulk order. I bootstrapped that. That was my personal savings, just through working in tech. So yeah, that was really tumultuous time. No question about that. I had this, to circle back, I had this really grounded, healthy community, and I was here burning, the midnight oil 7 nights a week, 80-hour weeks being like, I know I can do this. We are going to survive this pandemic. It's only going to be one more month until supply chains go back to normal. And it just kept pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yeah. Well, we're not back to normal 2 years later, right? Like, I don't know normal's going to come back, because then we had those ships stuck. I don't know. I'm not heard about those in a while, right? The ship stuck in the whatever. Slow down shipping again, right? It's just like calamity after calamity of errors that just keep putting on. But so you opened a warehouse, so you've got to learn pick and pull. You got to learn gridding out that everything, keeping that inventory, knowing where everything is, plus the risk of. I hate the warehouse business, right? I love the drop shipping. I get it made and ship it out, and if I do the warehouse, it's very, very small, like a couple hundred units. Did you have to commit to like 10,000, 100,000 units for this warehouse, or was it a smaller, is your manufacturer able to do 100 units, or did you really have to go all in?
Yeah, I mean, it was important to me to find sort of a family, family-friendly brand, and in the 3PL, it's kind of like a cool kids club sometimes when you're going into a new industry, and they like to throw a lot of buzzwords out. It's like going to take your car in, not knowing a thing about your engine, and just, okay, I'll buy that. That seems like it should be fixed. And it felt like that for 3PLs. So I probably talked to 20 different 3PLs, and a lot of them had, MOQs. They had minimum storage space and volume. And then I did find one team that wasn't necessarily the most tech forward company. They didn't even have real-time inventory management, but they got the mission. We just had a great connection, and they were willing to scale with me. So they were willing to start small. And so that was the ticket. Okay, we have warehouse space now. They're going to start us off 30 units. Let's get our first bulk order, $5,000 order. Let's start small.
Okay, so it's finding the right partner and not just taking the word from the first person you dealt with, right? And continue to go through. And it really ended up being a relationship play to get the warehouse space. And so the 3PL, they handle everything for you on the warehousing side. They pull the inventory and ship it.
Well, here's the thing. I'll make a quick plug for just working in a startup before you go off on your own, because I always rationalize career choices based on, I can learn X to then do Y later in my career, as most people do. But I actually did find that to be truly valuable. I've always wanted to work for a startup. I moved out west because I said, I want to work at a startup in San Diego. I didn't just want to move to San Diego. I didn't just want to go hang out at the beach all day. Like, I knew I wanted to ingrain myself into the San Diego startup community. I was really inspired by it. It didn't have a lot of the aura of, the Bay. And I liked that I was up and coming too. So I feel like the best thing I learned from working in startups is how to learn, how to take a very ambiguous task and break it down and build your team if you need to. Otherwise, as a individual contributor, take ambiguous tasks and proceed during murky market or business conditions. Regardless, nothing is straightforward in a startup. Even as hire number 30, even as hire number 50, you're wearing multiple hats. So I would say that's like a big skill that you can learn in any startup. I went into the 3PL saying, I have no idea about 3PLs. This is my money that I potentially could lose if I do this poorly. So you just got to be able to dive in and be willing to learn, and honestly be willing to learn, 70, 80% of what can get you there, and know, okay, this is where you break off and you don't need to be an expert and go be a 3PL consultant.
Right.
So that, just some small shifts in how you tackle tasks. But honestly, just working in a startup teaches you how to learn, just like you could argue college teaches you how to learn, not necessarily the content if you're getting more of a generalized degree. You do not need to go get a degree to do what I'm doing now. But it teaches you how to learn. So there's value there.
Absolutely. I know that I like hiring self-taught programmers over college educated programmers, because I know that they know how to teach themselves how to program. And I know that tomorrow there's gonna be a new version of PHP or a new version of Python or whatever, right? And you've got to know how to teach yourself how to do those things, right? It's really, really important task, especially in IT, because they don't teach this. They don't teach how to be an entrepreneur, and they don't teach how to be a programmer, right? If they do, they don't teach it well. Any course that I've ever taken, right? It's a deeper it's a deeper calling than just very surface level kind of, oh, I know how to do X, Y, and Z, so I can do this job, right? It's not data entry. It's it's everything, and there's 1,000 ways to do it wrong, and 1,000 ways to do it right. So as long as you're, my mind, as long as you're creating happy, healthy environments that are profitable, people can come and work, then you're a success. That's how I kind of gauge that out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Good Wave has a mission really to talk to the family-friendly water sports and now going into the outdoor sports world. If somebody wanted to, are you direct to consumer or are you to B2B?
I mean, we have actually two, arguably developing a third business model right now, which sounds overly complex. It sounds more complex than it is.
Right.
As I mentioned, we started in drop shipping. We do have some of our business still in drop shipping. It's really strategic. We're not working with marketplace drop shipper platforms.
Right.
You know, just not a business strategy for us. And so we're working directly with some of these sort of long-term partners at this point, still in a drop ship model. This is, if I had unlimited cash, I would move all the business into the warehouse. I'm just one by one moving our suppliers into our warehouse. So just a personal decision. So we're on this kind of hybrid approach. We have some business still on drop ship. We have a good amount of warehouse inventory now with some of our top selling, brands and suppliers. And then we're introducing a new business model, which is D2C. That was supposed to already be out, but due to supply chain shortages and the manufacturer closing down twice at this point, it's been pushed 9 months. So we're finally launching this summer. They're in production as we speak. So I can confidently say that. But yeah, we were supposed to launch last year. So that's the whole part. Yeah.
If somebody wanted to buy a Good Wave board, where would they do that at? Would they go to just your website or can they find them at stores?
Yeah, right now they can go to goodwave.co, www.goodwave.co. And I feel like Good Wave just popped up as I said that.
It did, yes.
On our screen. Great. Nice. Well timed. Yeah, they can go to goodwave.co. That's our main website. We have a Canadian, an Australian, and a brand new European website. So that has local fulfillment. We're working with local distributors on those sites. And you'll be able to buy our Fruities board, our fruit themed surfboard this summer on our main website. We're also going to have a landing page that's really specific to the product line because we'll be launching some new products underneath that brand name as well. It'll be Fruities by Good Wave. So we'll have our own microsite as well. But for now, they can go to goodwave.co.
Fantastic. Can you tell a little bit? You made a decision with your Fruities board to have a different brand name, like a different URL to send people to. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming that was not an easy decision to make, right? And you've got the Good Wave brand. Now you also have this other site that you have to spin up and market and get traffic to, which I could fight this topic for days on which way you should go, back and forth.
Yeah.
What was the decision on making sure that you had a separate landing page versus sending people to Good Wave behind that? I'd love to hear your input on that.
Yeah. Well, you'll recognize just through getting your repetitions in on what parts of the business are really easy for you to replicate and what other parts you need to hire out. I think it's comes down to a buy versus build mentality.
Right.
So it's really, really fast for me to spin up new websites. I'm not doing it myself anymore. It really helps to know the technology behind it. If I'm getting a quote from a web developer, I will call them out if they're quoting me and they're overcharging. So that's nice to know, but I'm outsourcing this work at this point. So I've got a team that I really rely on. They're exceptional. We're spinning up new sites. I'm always testing new products. My friends and, professional network give me a hard time. Some of the new concepts that I'm coming out with, they're totally out of left field. And I'm just throwing things out there through a little bit of research and seeing what sticks. So yeah, you kind of figure out what you can outsource and streamline and what you actually have to do yourself. It's not as much work as it seems. Again, drop shipping has a really low barrier to entry. At this point, we've got over a few thousand customers who are loyal and following us and who we bring into the product development process. We've got 300 customers who we tested these different samples with.
Right.
We're going to have them as our influencers. They're not going to be some famous social media families. These are going to be our customers.
Right.
5,000 followers maybe. So yeah, you kind of figure out what you can streamline and what you can do yourself.
Okay. So, but you're not kicking up a different brand. You're just kicking up a different landing page, right? So, but can they find the veggie boards also on goodwave.co still?
Yep. Yeah, they can find it on the website. We'll make it really clear. Trust me, we're excited about this. We see this as driving a good portion of our sales as well. It's a really popular product with our customers already, just through the the product development process.
Right.
And so it'll be right there on the Hero, landing page. We'll be selling pre-orders probably mid-May or so, depending on how supply chain stuff goes. And then we're targeting end of June to get these boards in. And that's a really realistic date. We're hearing some earlier dates, but just building in some cushion there. We should be fulfilling orders by late June.
Wonderful. That is such good news. I love that you're really making this an intimidating sport accessible to the masses and especially family friendly in that way. So getting mom, dad, the kids out there, out on the water. Doesn't matter if it's big surf in the ocean or something on lake, and then adding the mountain climbing and stuff like that as well, I think is super cool. If somebody's out in the world today and they're thinking about starting a business, if it's drop shipping or warehousing or something like whatever it is, right? They're working, they're busting their butt and they're working for somebody else and they want to start their own company. What words of advice do you have for that person today?
Just get started. There's no, probably every week, I'll message my dad and I talk about, oh, hey, you going back to school, this, that. And I say, I'm kind of getting my MBA right now. I'm getting my startup MBA, and it's a phenomenal education. I can't even tell you what I thought I'd go into this learning. I'm doing sales forecasts and, financial modeling right now, and inventory management and 3PL fulfillment, operations, logistics. I'm coordinating sea freight. I could have never told you 2 years ago that I'd be doing this. And walking through a warehouse of our own product, touching, feeling it. Just got to get started. The whole thing, we were chatting about this before the episode. I felt like I always made career decisions based on what I'd be learning for the next stage of the career. And I felt like I was always making decisions based on growth and learning. And then, hopefully financial gains would follow that. And I couldn't believe that more strongly. You could say it was a sunk cost for me to go back to school. I lost money, right, to do that. But I believe that learning that skill helped me start this business. So indirectly, it was a really good investment.
Right.
And we get so focused on where we want to have our work lead to and what we see the outcome of that, whether it's getting a new job offer or getting, an interview. There are no, $3 million Series A announcements, yet or anytime soon with Goodwave. It's just about small incremental growth. So yeah, you just got to get started. You're going to get humbled. I promise you'll be humbled more than you ever have been working as a teammate, even, as a leader. Yeah, you got to earn your scars or
absolutely
messing up that phrase, but yeah, you just got to get started.
Yeah. I think something important that you said there was the sunk cost of going back to school. And I've fallen in the trap so many times in my career of getting hung up on a sunk cost and not just forgetting about it and moving on with life, right? Holding on to something that I purchased, no, I have to make this work because I spent so much money on it. It's a sunk cost. It's gone. Forget about it. You learned what you learned from it and move on with life. Now, when you started Goodwave, you had another job and it took you a year before you really honed in on it. What do you tell the person that's in that boat and they're in the 9th and 10th month, right? And they don't see it yet. How do they, what was it that kept you moving forward during those times? And you're like, a year's a long time, right? And there's a lot of people out there that, you watch YouTube and you're like, oh man, this person was an overnight success. They don't know about the 5 years that it took them to get there, 20 years to get there. How did you find the tenacity to keep going in, month 6, 7, and 8 when it was, the furthest away from where you thought you'd be on day one, right? Day one, you're like, oh man, I'm gonna knock this out of the park and I'll be making money in 2 or 3 months. But that didn't happen. How do you keep going?
Yeah. I feel like the answer to this question is constantly changing as I
Yeah.
grow and learn, being a founder, frankly. You could even say, oh, Brad didn't transact for 10 months, 12 months in this company, but I would argue it was a good 10 years because I was starting businesses since I was like 18, 19, but I didn't have the whole business part of it figured out. I just liked starting projects and building communities around products or missions and concept of that. I've had a bunch of projects that I didn't share. One in the music industry, actually, which we should catch up on later. It just comes down to, I guess, a North Star. My North Star was purpose through my work, and I knew I wasn't going to accomplish that. I knew there was an upper bound for me personally in any career, and I truly admire friends and family and people who have found their calling and have a set career. And I say, you are the smart one. Like, I would never advise if you have that calling, like keep learning, stay on that path to 9 to 5.
Right.
But in your bones if you want to work for yourself and start something. And if you're a builder and creator, and don't get me wrong, you can do that internally at a company as well. But for me, it came down to my North Star. I knew I wanted to do this. My dad and I chat business all the time. He's worked for himself as well for a long time. So he's always pushing me like, hey, this, that. He's a good mentor in that sense. But he was just kind of watching from the outside, watching me make mistakes. He wasn't involved financially in the least bit. It was really fun. But you just got to get started. And those points where okay, it feels like I'm not going anywhere. Like, you have to be able to talk yourself out of business decisions too, because you're going to be the number one believer in your product or business. If you're not, you should drop tools now, because no one else will be that for you. You have to be that for yourself. And you just have to, like, right now we're in slow season. We're heading up to our peak season. I've got like 3 big projects I'm just starting now in Q2, will be starting based on like customer experience and retention. And I'm not going to see a return for these for like 5 months minimum. Right. And I'm a solopreneur. I'm the only full-time employee. We have a big team of freelancers and folks ranging in their commitment, but this is my money. Like, if this fails, it's not just, oh, we posted negative results this quarter, shoot, how are we going to correct this? This is like how do I pay rent? I got to find some money. So, okay. And to circle back in your question,
but it does come, right? Like, faith in the fact that you can figure out how to make enough money to eat and pay the bills. You can figure that out, right? Yeah. It's not at some point, and I don't know when it comes, paying the mortgage and making sure food on the table just gets really comfortable, right? It doesn't matter how crazy the business is going, or, it's just, I don't know how we do it, but somehow we figure it out.
Yeah. It comes down to values too, and priorities, where you're at in life. If you're in your 20s right now watching this, go for it. You won't want to do this to the same degree when you're 40. I noticed my needs and preferences changing. I'm 30, and my needs when I started this business were different. Now I have different goals of financial stability that I didn't have then. It was more about growth and learning and, blah, blah, blah. So I think checking in with your values, it's going to get harder as you get older, but it's never too late to start is the other question. If it's harder as you get older, that means other people aren't doing it. You probably have a lot of experience that you could go off on your own and be successful. But your values will change. As the only forewarning, I cannot tell you how much respect and admiration I have for working family members and parents and caregivers who are going off on their own, because the vulnerability you have financially when you're starting is challenging. And just tons of respect for folks who do that.
Yeah, it is.
But you
super
just got to get
challenging.
started. Comes back. You just have to get started.
And my priorities never changed, and my ability, like, I don't think. But then I had a wife and kids, and that, like, not my, those things. I guess they're still my priorities. I got to make sure that they're fed. But if it were just me, I would still be as big a risk taker as in my 20s. But I'd feel really horrible going home and telling them they got to live in the car next month. But anyway,
I can do that for now. I got a little bit of a shelf life there.
If it was just me, I'd put it all on the table every single day. But it's not just me, so I needed them to make me a little more conservative, I think, because I did that too frequently in my 20s by far. Anyway,
but as a quick plug to you, like, you know, if you're a family person, you have other responsibilities. People rely on you. You're the caregiver, so to say, for lack of a better word. That could also be motivation to say, I want to have control and autonomy over my schedule, even though we're in this remote first, work culture right now. And that's probably the trend, at least on a macro level, moving forward for tech, at least.
Right.
Like, you still want to potentially have full control where you can see every one of your kids' soccer games and, whatever they're into. I think there's motivations on both sides of it, depending on, no matter where you're at in life.
Absolutely. And it's just the amount of conservativeness that you have on your risk tolerance level, right? Yeah. When you have a wife and kids, your risk tolerance goes down a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Mine's still pretty high for having a wife and kids, but my
nice.
Wife is wildly supportive of me, so we'll keep doing it until.
And she's your business partner too. So that
she
helps.
is my business partner as well, in almost everything. So it is what it is. Thank you for your time today, Brad. I very much appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, or actually you're in your down season right now, so this is probably the perfect timing to get this shot. So, but I do appreciate your time. It's been rewarding, and I learned a lot from you today. Thank you.
Yeah, Ken, likewise. I learned a lot from you. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. That's it for today's show, folks. Again, if you'd like to join my text line community, it's 314-370-2871. Ask me any question about business or technology. I'll do some research and get back to you. Absolutely free, unbiased answer. Get to work.